The first time I saw that old safe, it was half buried behind Clyde's general store, rusted over like an iron tombstone. Thing hadn't been opened in 20 years, maybe more. No combination, no key, just dead weight and bad luck. Folks joked it had a curse on it. Town drunks used to dare each other to pee on it during poker nights. But me, I looked at that box and saw something different. I'd only been in town 3 months. Rick Boon, just another rough-handed stranger looking for work. Kept to myself. Rented the old barn at the edge of town. Fixed it up into a workshop with my last few dollars. Hammered out horseshoes, sharpened plows. I wasn't trying to be liked. I was trying to breathe. One morning, while loading up some nails, I nodded toward the safe and asked Clyde, "What do you take for that scrap heap?" He chuckled, thought I was joking. "Son, if you haul it off my lot, I'll give you $5. I pulled out a 10 and held it up. "Nah, I'll pay you." He squinted at me like I was touched. "That thing weighs near 800 pounds. I'll manage." News travels faster in small towns than fire and dry brush. By lunchtime, the whole street knew I'd bought the cursed safe. The Grangers, Virgil and his boys, stood outside their feed store cackling like budgards. Look at Boon trying to buy himself a girlfriend. Gonna marry that safe next week. I ignored them. I always did. That evening, I borrowed a dolly, winch, and sheer determination to drag the safe down the hill to my barn. Took 4 hours and cost me a pulled shoulder, but by dusk, I had it centered on a thick wooden platform, with lanterns lit and my tools lined up like soldiers. I'd already cleared the spot, measured the foundation down to the inch. I wasn't trying to fix the safe, I was building around it. No one knew what I had in mind. That's how I liked it. Over the next week, I started working at odd hours, mostly at night when the crickets sang loud and the world forgot to watch. But people are nosy by nature. Rebecca Granger, Virgil's daughter, used to walk past on accidental errands. She'd glance over her shoulder, pretending not to care, but her eyes stuck like burrs. "Why'd you buy that thing?" she finally asked one afternoon, arms folded over a sack of flour. I just said, "Because no one else would." She gave a half laugh, half scoff, and walked away, shaking her head. Let 'em laugh. I didn't buy that safe for what it used to be. I bought it for what it could be. They thought I was the fool. I was counting on it. The first came in the back of Caleb Meyer's wagon. 2 crates marked fragile, filled with copper coils, tiny valves, and a coiled mess of flexible tubing. Caleb squinted as I paid him. "You opening a distillery or building a lightning catcher?" "Neither," I said, loading the parts without another word. A week later, more arrived. Glass cylinders, brass gears, rubber gaskets, something that looked like part of a steam engine's heart. I never explained. I just worked. By now, the safe was no longer a safe. I'd cut through its back with a diamond bit saw, replaced the bottom with a reinforced steel frame I welded myself. The interior was hollowed out like a gutted fish, every square inch repurposed with precision, mounts, ports, channels for fluid and pressure. It wasn't a vault anymore. It was a chassis. Every morning I laid out a new diagram in chalk across my workbench. Lines crisscrossed like spider webs, some mechanical, some fluid, some electrical. I called it my invisible blueprint. Not one line of it existed on paper. It was all in my head, passed down from lessons I'd learned back east, working under men who thought I'd never amount to more than a skilled pair of hands. Now, every line had a purpose. Every part told a story. But I told no one. Rebecca stopped by more frequently. First with excuses like needing nails or checking prices. Then with questions she disguised as jokes. "You running moonshine in that thing, Boon?" I glanced up from my wiring. "Something purer." She tilted her head. "You ever think people might understand you better if you shared what you're doing?" I tightened a bolt and didn't answer. But I knew what you meant. People don't fear what they understand. They fear what they don't. And Virgil Granger, patriarch of this dusty little kingdom, was starting to fear. He'd gone from mocking me to side-eyeing me. I caught him across the street one day, arms crossed, watching as I calibrated a pressure gauge. His sons, beefy twins with more fists than brains, stood beside him like sentries. None of them said a word. They didn't need to. Their silence felt louder than laughter ever had. By then, the whispers had started. "He's building something in that barn. Something mechanical. Something strange." But no one could say exactly what. The mystery gave me space, but it also gave me enemies. Because in a town like ours, if you're not predictable, you're a threat. I worked through the nights, tuning valves and sealing chambers. I tested with air, then with water. I adjusted and readjusted until every gear turned like it had a soul. Still, I kept the doors locked and the answers closer. You could feel something shifting in the town. I wasn't just the outsider anymore. I was the question everyone wanted answered. But I wasn't ready to speak. Not yet.
There's something mesmerizing about motion. Precise, deliberate motion born from still metal. When the gears first turned on their own, it felt like watching a heart come alive in a body I built with my own hands. I poured water into the top intake valve, slow and steady. Inside the modified safe, a cascade of gears rotated without power, driven by gravity, pressure differentials, and counterweights. The copper tubing hissed softly, guiding the flow through a network of filters and pressure regulators I'd machined myself. Each gear wasn't just spinning, it was timing a function, triggering release points, adjusting flow. At the bottom, after 37 seconds exactly, clear water dripped out of a spout into a glass jar. No fuel, no fire, no electricity, just mechanics, precision, purpose. And it was only the beginning. I didn't know Rebecca had slipped in. She stood in the doorway, eyes wide, lips parted. "What is that?" she whispered. I didn't look up. "It's a conversation starter." She stepped closer, ignoring the oil stains and the warm metal tang in the air. "It's filtering water?" "Yes." "How? Without heat? Without anything?" I kept the jar and set it aside. "Just physics, timing, flow. The trick is to let gravity and pressure do the work, but it's not ready yet." Her voice was softer now. "It looks ready. It's only one piece." She looked at me, eyes searching. "And what's the hole?" But I didn't answer. That night I heard Virgil's truck pass by slow, real slow. Gravel crunched under his tires like someone chewing glass. I stepped outside, wiping my hands on a rag, and watched his brake lights fade at the edge of town. Next morning, the Granger boys leaned against a post outside the saloon, arms folded and muttering to anyone who'd listen. "He's building a scam. He's going to poison folks," said the other. The words didn't have teeth yet, but they were trying to grow some. I kept my head down, kept calibrating. The valves needed tuning to adjust for different flow rates. The filters had to be redundant with automatic bypass if one clogged. I'd learned that lesson during a flood in Baton Rouge when every pump failed and the backup system saved an entire street from drinking sewage. I built those systems once.
I knew what failure looked like, and I wouldn't let this become one. But something had shifted after Rebecca saw it move. Her curiosity turned to something sharper. She asked fewer questions, but came around more often, bringing biscuits she claimed were leftovers. Once, she left a daisy in a jar by the window. I didn't ask why. I wasn't just building a machine anymore. I was building expectation. And expectation, I'd learned, draws both admiration and enemies. The machine could filter water, but the real test was coming, and it had nothing to do with water at all. It happened on a Wednesday morning, just as the sun spilled gold over the valley hills. I was tightening the final anchor bolts on the rear regulator when I heard the unmistakable crunch of heavy boots. 3 sets of them. Virgil Granger and his 2 sons stood just outside the barn, arms crossed like judges waiting to sentence a man. I didn't stop working. "You gonna tell the town what you're up to, Boon?" Virgil said. His tone was casual, but not friendly. "Or do we keep guessing whether you're building a bomb or a bathtub?" I rose slow, wiped my hands on my apron, and met his eyes. "I'm solving a problem." One of his boys, Harlan, the taller one, snorted. "What problem?" I walked to the corner, dragged over the barrel I'd filled with rainwater. The thing stank. Mud, bird droppings, leaves, and grit from the roof. I opened the top valve on the machine. "That," I said, "is what we drink when the well runs dry." Virgil smirked. "We've managed just fine." I said, "You've tolerated it. I aim to do better." I poured the filth into the intake. The machine clicked, hissed, and gurgled to life. Tubes pulsed, valves open and shut with timed precision. Rebecca had arrived somewhere in the middle of it all. I saw her out of the corner of my eye, standing behind the Grangers, watching. 37 seconds later, as always, a stream of clear water filled a mason jar. I held it up. No words, just motion. Virgil stepped forward, snatched the jar, sniffed it, then took a sip. His eyebrows twitched. Rebecca whispered, "That's incredible." "Is it safe?" asked Virgil. "Triple filtration, reverse siphon failsafe, mechanical redundancy." He glared. "You're making up words now." "No," I said, "I'm building a water system." They all stared. I went on. "The safe gave me the chassis, steel strong enough to handle pressure and weight. Everything else I designed from scratch. This isn't a purifier, it's a platform. I can scale it, duplicate it, reconfigure for different flow rates, contaminants, or demand." Silence. I reached down and twisted a knob. The machine adjusted itself, slower this time. Then I pulled a lever. Internal valves shifted to reroute flow. The system kept running, uninterrupted. Harlan shifted on his boots. "And what exactly are you planning to do with it?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Help people stay alive." Virgil didn't like that. His lips curled like he'd bit into a lemon. "You're just a blacksmith," I said. "I was. Now I'm something else." He left without another word. His boys followed. Rebecca lingered. She ran her fingers over the copper piping, eyes filled with something close to wonder. "You built this in 3 months?" she asked. I nodded. "And you haven't told anyone?" "I don't want their permission. I want results." She smiled, faint but real. "Well, you got 'em." Outside, I heard the Granger truck start. Inside, the machine kept running. Unbothered, unstoppable. Just like me.
By the end of the week, folks weren't laughing anymore. It started with old man Jericho. He showed up at my barn holding a cloudy jug of creek water and a skeptical squint. "Heard you got a contraption that makes mud taste like spring," I didn't answer, just poured his water in, let the machine hum, and handed him back the jar, now clean and clear. He drank half of it in one go, then stared at me like I'd parted the Red Sea. Next day, the Hansons came by with their 4 kids, then the Briggs family, then Maria Chavez and her mother. Word had spread like wildfire. Clean water, no well, no waiting, no sickness. Just walk to the edge of town and ask the quiet man in the barn. I never advertised, didn't need to. Each time, I let the machine speak for itself. I kept logs, temperature, clarity, pressure, contamination variance. I tested the runoff, studied the filters for wear, refined the valves and nozzles between sessions. With each cycle, the system became smoother, quieter, more reliable. Meanwhile, something else began to shift. The Grangers used to walk down Main Street like kings, Virgil tipping his hat to shop owners who depended on his grain, his feed, his name. But now, folks stopped tipping back. They were too busy whispering about what I was building, too busy talking about results. Rebecca started visiting daily, not with questions, but with interest. She watched every tweak I made. She asked real things like why I used rubber seals instead of cork, or how the twin gears synced flow without overlapping. I told her the truth. Most of it came from my years in failed engineering schools and night shifts fixing backup pumps at crumbling southern mills. I wasn't a genius. I was stubborn. You ever think of selling it? She asked one day, tracing her fingers over the main intake valve. Selling it means someone else controls it. She nodded slowly, so that's a no. It's a hell no. I didn't hide the function anymore. I gave demonstrations on Saturdays, buckets of sludge in, crystal clear water out. People clapped. Children pointed. One little boy called it the water box that eats dirt. But I never showed the guts, never shared the real plans. The internals stayed closed. Virgil noticed. His jaw tightened each time he passed. His boys, once cocky, now hung back in doorways. Their old feed store sat quieter than usual. Fewer wagons parked out front. Their grain didn't clean water. Their money didn't cure stomach aches. I was becoming a problem, and I knew it. Rebecca warned me after Sunday church. She caught me behind the chapel, eyes scanning for her father. He doesn't like being small, she whispered. I'm not making him small. I'm just making something bigger. He won't care. He's used to being the center. I looked at her. That's about to change. And I meant it. Because this wasn't a gadget. It was the beginning of something permanent.
He came just after dawn. I heard the knock while pouring my first cup of coffee. 3 sharp raps on the barn's side door. I knew it was him before I opened it. Virgil Granger didn't knock like a neighbor. He knocked like a sheriff with a warrant. He wore his Sunday coat and that smug half-smile he always used before delivering a threat dressed in manners. In his hand, a worn leather satchel. "Mind if I come in?" he asked, already stepping through. I let the door swing shut behind him and watched as he eyed the machine like it was a rival bull. "You've done well for yourself," he said. "Mighty impressive." I said nothing. He opened the satchel, pulled out 5 stacks of bills, crisp, bound tight with twine. $500, he said, for the machine and the plans. You let me take over, handle production and distribution. We keep your name on it, out of respect, but I own the rights. I let the silence hang. He mistook it for hesitation. "Don't get me wrong," he said, pacing slow. "You've built something clever, but clever only takes you so far out here. Infrastructure, logistics, people. That takes experience, authority. You want this to spread, you need someone like me." I folded my arms. "You want to control it." He chuckled. "I want to make sure it's done right. And by right, you mean profitable." He straightened up. I mean manageable. You've stirred up expectations. People think they can live without the old systems now. That kind of talk, it causes trouble, chaos, or change, I said. His smile vanished. You say no, and things get harder, he said, voice low. Deliveries dry up. Tools go missing. Folks stop doing favors. Life gets uncomfortable. I stared him down. You threatening me, Virgil? He stepped closer. I'm giving you a chance to stay useful, because if you ain't useful, you're in the way. I walked past him, picked up a wrench, and began tightening a valve. Calm, precise. I said, you can keep your money. This machine doesn't run on cash. He looked at me like I was speaking another language. You think people'll keep backing you once they realize you don't play nice? I'm not playing, I said. That's your mistake. He stared for a long moment, then packed up the bills, snapped the satchel shut. You'll regret this. No, I said. You will. He left without another word, boots crunching gravel with each angry step. Rebecca arrived an hour later. Her face told me she already knew. He came to buy you out, didn't he? I nodded. Did he threaten you? Not directly. She looked down, then up again. You know he won't let it go. I'm counting on it. She stepped close, lowered her voice. You're not safe. I'm not interested in safe, I said. I'm interested in what comes next. Because I'd already built more than what he saw. He thought I had one prototype. He didn't know I had 3. And one of them was already connected to something bigger.
It hit just after the Harvest Festival. The 1 week a year the valley acted like one big family. Bonfires, pies, kids running through rows of corn stalks, an old man arguing over checkers. But 3 days after, the well at the center of town turned sour. No one knew why. Maybe something upstream died and rotted. Maybe a fissure opened underground. But by the next morning, folks were doubled over with cramps. By noon, 2 children were in bed with fevers. Panic spreads fast when the thing you depend on every day suddenly turns against you. By sundown, they came. Dozens of them, dirty jugs, buckets, empty milk cans clanking behind them. No pride left, no mockery in their eyes anymore. Just need, raw and real. Rebecca stood near the front, her face pale. Rick, she said, we need your help. I nodded once. Bring everyone you can. Bring every container that'll hold water. And follow me. I walked past the main machine and out the back of the barn to the shed. No one had ever seen inside it. I had kept it locked, windows boarded, with a tarp over the padlock to make it look unimportant. I pulled the latch. Inside were 3 larger machines, built from the same principles but bigger, stronger, faster. Each connected to a buried intake pipe that led to separate collection pits I'd dug over the last 2 months. I'd filtered runoff from the hills, collected rainwater through hidden troughs in the barn's eaves, and built gravity-fed tanks underground. Nobody knew. Until now. People gasped. Someone whispered, "Good Lord!" I didn't wait. I turned the valves, heard the system groan and whir and breathe. The first stream of water gushed from a spigot on the side wall. Crystal clear, cold, clean. A little boy darted forward with a tin cup. His mother tried to stop him, but I waved her off. He drank deep, wiped his mouth, and grinned. Then the chaos began, but not the bad kind. Folks lined up. I had Rebecca help regulate flow, 2 teenagers from the Miller family manned the buckets, and an older couple who used to think I was a lunatic became the keepers of the queue. Virgil showed up last. He looked around, mouth tight, his power gone, his threats forgotten. He stepped forward like a man forcing himself to swallow pride. "We need water." I nodded. "Then take it." He flinched like I'd slapped him. He expected me to gloat. I didn't have time. This was bigger than me. Bigger than him. Bigger than winning. By midnight, every family in town had enough to drink, cook, and wash. The machines ran steady, cool, and quiet. No breakdowns, no clogs, no failure. They weren't just machines anymore. They were infrastructure, and the town had seen it with their own eyes. That night, while the last bucket sloshed out into the dark, Rebecca touched my shoulder and said, "They'll never see you the same again." I looked over the moonlit faces, exhausted but grateful, and replied, "Good."
The machines ran through the night and into the next morning without a hitch. Every 10 minutes, I checked pressure levels, filter integrity, and flow rates. Every time, they came back perfect. By noon the next day, no one in the valley was thirsty. No one was boiling creek water or praying over dirty buckets. They were filling glasses straight from the tap I'd installed on the edge of my fence line. What used to be just my land now felt like the valley's new lifeline. The old well stayed shut. A few townsfolk, Doc Henley, Old Man Jericho, Maria Chavez, came by with baked goods and handshakes, their thanks heavy with meaning. But most folks just brought their containers, nodded quietly, and left. Pride dies hard in a small town, but gratitude finds a way through. Rebecca stayed. She helped log the usage, monitored flow meters, even learned how to flush the pre-filters without shutting down the entire system. She wasn't just helping. She was learning. "You started something you can't walk away from," she said one evening, wiping her hands with a rag. "I know. You ever going to patent it? Sell it?" I shook my head. "It's not about owning it." "Then what is it about?" I looked at the machines humming quietly in the twilight. "It's about making sure no one goes without because they can't afford to be seen." She stared at me for a long time, then smiled. Meanwhile, Virgil Granger retreated. No more threats, no more offers. He stopped looking me in the eye altogether. The man who used to decide which direction the town leaned now walked with his shoulders curled, his pride gutted. And maybe that was necessary. He'd ruled by control. I led by solution. Folks noticed. Over the next few weeks, I expanded the piping, dug small trenches with help from the townspeople, added taps at the schoolhouse, the church, even the general store where Clyde used to laugh about that old rusted safe. Funny thing, he asked if I could build one of the machines inside his store. I told him maybe. The town had started to shift, not all at once, not like a thunderclap, but like snow melting after a hard winter. Quiet, slow, and sure. People looked at me differently, not as the outsider with grease under his nails, but as something more stable, more essential. I never asked for a seat on any committee, didn't join the town council, or buy land I didn't need. I just kept refining the systems, making them stronger, more efficient, easier to maintain. And when the next summer drought came, nobody even noticed. Water kept flowing. No boil notices, no rationing, just cool, clean water, on demand. Rebecca stayed. She moved into the loft above the workshop after her father stopped speaking to her. I offered her the room and nothing more. She took it and everything more. Some things don't need words. And the safe? Still there. Still rusted on the outside. Still the heart of it all. Every time I see it, I think about what people throw away, what they call worthless because they can't see past the surface, what they mock because they don't understand it. And I remember that thing nobody wanted, it saved a town.